What you're seeing in this video is a clip from my live stream that I do on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern time on the OBR's YouTube channel. It's a show I call Quincy Carrier Live. So if you want to catch me live on Mondays during the football season, make sure you subscribe to the OBR's YouTube channel. Me and them are doing a collaboration for this year, and I'm going to be live Mondays at 7 p.m. on the OBR. Deshaun Watson never played in a West Coast offense prior to playing in Cleveland, right? And that is why that adjustment felt so clunky at times. Because Deshaun Watson played in the spread in high school, played in the spread in college, and then got to the NFL. They tried to put him under center for a couple of games, for like a couple of snaps, and then they put him in the spread in Houston. He comes to Cleveland, and one of the points I make about Deshaun Watson on the field, in the building, is that Deshaun Watson is sometimes coachable to a fault. And by the way, we got almost 100 people in here. I need y'all to hit that like button. Let's get over 100 likes and then hit that subscribe button. Let's try to hit 3K. Let's try to hit 3K before the end of the week to start the season. But Deshaun Watson never played outside of spread, comes to Cleveland, and now he's in the West Coast. And a West Coast isn't under the center, old school offense. Like a lot of new school offenses run West Coast principles. Look at Sean McVay in LA. It's not always going to look the same, but it is fundamentally similar with how you operate in that West Coast offense. And Deshaun had to play football in a completely different way than he's played football while coming back from a 700-day break, while working back from injuries in 2023. And I think at times he figured out some of it, right? The patience that he needs. And what Kevin was really trying to get home is to just take what the defense is giving you. And that's going to be the number one key for Deshaun Watson this season. It's not going to be about the big plays. It's not going to be about the highlight reel stuff. He's going to be able to do that, and there are going to be moments during the season where he will have to do that. Don't get me wrong. But it's not going to come up all the time. Another thing to point out about Deshaun Watson's career. In high school, now if y'all know about Gainesville, Georgia football, high school football, y'all tell me. Now, I wasn't watching high school football when Deshaun was playing it. I'm pretty sure Deshaun was the best player on his high school team. I'm just going to go out on a limb there and say the dude who went to Clemson and started his freshman year was probably by far the best player on his high school team. If anybody knows if that's not the case, please let me know. I will correct the record, but I'm pretty sure Deshaun Watson was the best player on his team in high school. He goes to Clemson, and for 4 years, he's the dude at Clemson. He was the face of Clemson. That you thought of Clemson football, you thought of Deshaun Watson. It was all on his back. And not to say Clemson didn't have talent, but all of that talent orbited around Deshaun Watson. Because where was most of that talent? Wide receiver. They had some defensive tackles, some corners, but it was really wide receiver where you knew Clemson, and that talent orbits around what Deshaun Watson was able to do at the quarterback position. It's what made us so impressed with what he was able to do at Clemson. He comes to the NFL, it's the same thing with Houston. Everything kind of orbits around him. He needs to get that first down. He needs to risk his body to get that first down because you can't. What you gonna do? Run the ball to Duke Johnson? You can't rely on that. Deshaun was the only one on offense to be relied upon. Another huge adjustment. He comes to Cleveland. It ain't on him. We don't need Deshaun to break his shoulder trying to get 2 yards. We got Nick Chubb. We don't need Deshaun to make something happen out of nowhere and throw the ball behind his back. Just dump it off to David Njoku. He could do the rest. We don't need Deshaun Watson to put up 1 million points in order to stay with the team like he had to do in 2020 because his defense in Houston was so awful. We don't need Deshaun to do that. We got the best defense in the world. We don't even need you to score more than like 60% of the drives you out there. It's fine. If you go 3 and out, it's okay. You're probably going to get the ball back pretty quick. It's a completely different situation. You go from having all the pressure on you, your team's ability to win is directly laid upon your shoulder, to coming to Cleveland and ain't really about that. Honestly, we want you to do that less because when you turn the ball over, you make everybody's lives harder. Like it was worth it when Deshaun threw a crazy turnover in Houston because you need him to make those crazy throws in order to stay in the game. In Cleveland, we don't really need him to do that. We need Deshaun Watson to kind of be boring, to just make the right decisions, to play how he did in Baltimore. The funniest thing that I hear about how people react to that Baltimore game is that Deshaun Watson didn't make any spectacular throws. He didn't wow me with any single throw or play that he made. So it must have been bad. And when people say stuff like that, it makes me understand just how many people talk about football, but don't understand the quarterback position. We love the quarterback position. We love the quarterback position because the highlight plays that can be made. But make no mistake about it, the nuts and bolts of the quarterback position is very boring. Honestly, you don't want to be the most exciting quarterback in the NFL. The most exciting quarterback in the NFL is rarely the most winningest quarterback when it comes to championships at the end of the year. Tom Brady was never the most exciting quarterback during his era. There were plenty of guys who took that mantle from Tom Brady. It's why the Tom Brady diehards that you run into that are like my age or older, they fight so hard to prove to you that Tom Brady is the GOAT, because during Tom Brady's run, the bulk of it, everybody wanted to call somebody else better than Tom Brady because they were more exciting. Early part of Tom Brady's career, Peyton Manning. There's a lot of people who watch football 2010 to 2000 that will tell you Tom Brady's not better than Peyton Manning. I would rather draft Peyton Manning than Tom Brady. Tom Brady's a system quarterback. All these things, right? They're not true, but that's how people felt because Peyton Manning was way more exciting. Peyton Manning also had a lot more issues in playoffs. Now, why is that the case? I'll get to that later, but let me continue on this path. Aaron Rodgers, way more exciting, right? You get to 2010, way more exciting than Tom Brady. There was a point where people were comparing Aaron Rodgers to Michael Jordan. I don't know if you guys remember this, but that was a thing. I would watch NBC. I would watch Aaron Rodgers play on NBC. And Chris Collinsworth, that's Jordan. That's football Jordan. It's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers won one championship and got to the Super Bowl one time. People swore up and down that Aaron Rodgers was better than Tom Brady, but he was never able to best him and never able to have the postseason success that Tom Brady was able to have. Pat Mahomes early in his career was super exciting. Now, you've noticed the shift over the last 2 years. He lost Tyreek Hill, and it became a lot less exciting to watch the Kansas City Chiefs. So much so that people make it a point to say that the Chiefs aren't that good anymore. They don't have those wild plays. They don't do the things that blow your mind as much now that they don't have Tyreek Hill. They're cooked. They lose Tyreek Hill. They win 2 championships in a row. They're a favorite to win it this year. I think the shift there is that Pat Mahomes started to play a little bit more boring football. And here's my point. Lamar Jackson is another great example of this. The most exciting player in football right now is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's never been to a Super Bowl. Like, if you told me who's more exciting to watch, Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson, it's Lamar Jackson 10 times out of 10. But Joe Burrow has better postseason success because Joe Burrow is more comfortable being bored than Lamar Jackson. You got to be comfortable being bored and doing the boring thing as a quarterback. What Tom Brady was able to do, mental discipline, patience at that quarterback position. Because he didn't need to make the big play. He'll make it when it's there, but he's not going to get baited into taking that big play early. He's going to take the under. He's going to throw that out. He's going to figure out what's there on the defense and take the appropriate shot needed. He's fine with a 12-play drive or a 15-play drive. Or if it takes 5 18-play drives to win the game, that's what Tom Brady's going to do. Some guys can't do that. Some guys get to their third 18-play drive and they want to speed it up. They want to throw that deep ball and they throw the interception and make the big mistake. Baker Mayfield's biggest problem was that he could not stay disciplined when it came to taking the easy money, because he would take the easy money, take the easy money, take the easy money for like 2 drives. And then the defensive coordinator would be like, let's bait him. Let's make him think this big money shot's going to be there. He's not even going to think twice about it. He's going to be so desperate to get a big play in because he's been doing all this small stuff. He's going to throw it and we're going to pick it off. And Baker Mayfield fell into those traps consistently. Now, hopefully he's done a better job of that. I haven't watched Baker Mayfield all 22 in Tampa Bay. So if he's gotten better at that, and good on Baker, but we're talking about what he was in Cleveland. You got to be patient. And Deshaun Watson this year, the big plays, the highlight stuff, that's going to play well on TikTok and Twitter, but I don't care about what TikTok and Twitter thinks about you as a quarterback. I care about what December, what January, and what February thinks about you as a quarterback when it comes to your win-loss record. And for Deshaun Watson to reach his goals, he's got to do a lot of what he did in Baltimore, and he's not going to get any credit for it. Nobody's going to be jumping over rails and banisters to tell you about how great Deshaun Watson's patience. Nobody's going to give him credit for it. He's going to get negative press for it at times because the numbers aren't going to be spectacular. But what he has to do to be successful and what he has to do to help the Browns reach their goals. And look, I'm not saying he has to be check down, man, right? He don't got to go out there and play like Kirk Cousins. That's not what I mean by being bored. What I mean by being boring is just, okay, that out's going to be open. Let me throw that, right? 10 yards down the field is 20 yards down the field. It's not always a check down, but you just figure out what the defense is willing to give up and you take it. Sometimes it's a 10-yard play. Sometimes it's a 15-yard play. Sometimes it's a 20-yard play. Sometimes it's a 5-yard play. You just take it. You stay positive. Get ahead of stakes. If Deshaun Watson, like he was in Baltimore, is willing to be bored, is willing to do the boring thing, is willing to play football that might be less exciting, you're not going to take as many hits. You're not going to roll out and have the blind behind the back throw like he did against the Raiders. But we don't need you to do that. We need you to just dump it off to David and let him do his thing. Hey, Amari's going to cook this guy on a one-on-one. Just throw it to Amari. You might not get credit. People might say, oh, the DB just played bad or Amari just carried him. Like, you're going to hear a lot of that. You got to be mature enough and mentally disciplined enough to not care about any of that. Nobody's going to give Deshaun Watson credit this year, whether he plays spectacular or not, whether he plays winning football or not. Nobody wants to give him credit, and that's fine. He has to be okay with that. Nobody wanted to give Tom Brady credit either. We live now in a world where people want to give Tom Brady the credit. We live now in a world where everybody calls him the GOAT, and that's unanimous. But those of you who are my age, older, maybe even some of y'all who are younger, y'all remember the world we used to live in with Tom Brady. Y'all remember when he was out there playing against Peyton Manning and we was like, he's just a game man. We used to talk about Tom Brady the same way we talk about Brock Purdy. Like the things you hear about Brock Purdy were the exact same things we heard about Tom Brady, even after the 2008 season. It don't matter how Twitter thinks you play. It doesn't matter how some dude with an anime avatar thinks that guy's playing because he looked up a couple of stats while he's taking a dump. That guy does not matter. Okay? We need to stop catering what we want from our football players based off of what people do while they're on the toilet, which is tweet. It doesn't have to be that way. For Deshaun, I'm not saying he has to play average football. I'm not saying he has to play poor football, but doing this is difficult. He has to play disciplined football. He has to be disciplined mentally. He has to be okay with taking what's there. He has to be okay with not being the guy that's going to get all the credit. And when you hear him talk to his credit about what happened in Baltimore and how Pat Mahomes won against Baltimore in the conference championship round on his podcast, to give Deshaun Watson credit, he sounds like somebody who understands that assignment. Now, understanding your assignment and doing your assignment, two totally different things. I'm glad he understands it, and at this point, that's all I can ask for Deshaun Watson. But the test for Deshaun Watson isn't going to be what he does in the first quarter or the second quarter. It's going to be how patient can he be? How much can he take care of the football? Can he take what's there? Can he stay disciplined on taking what's there? Is he going to be too eager to take the big play? Is he willing to just, instead of rolling out and trying to find a big play downfield, step up and make the play that you know you can make right now? That's what it is for Deshaun. The Browns don't need Deshaun Watson to be the best player on the team. Deshaun Watson can throw for 4,000. He can throw for 4,500 yards. He can throw for 30 touchdowns. He won't be the best player on this team because the Browns have a first ballot Hall of Famer before he's 30 in Myles Garrett. Like, there's no world where Deshaun is a better player than Myles Garrett on this team. He doesn't need to be the best player on this team. Myles Garrett is the best player on this team. Nick Chubb is the second best player on this team. He needs to be the third best player on this team. That doesn't mean he needs to be a game manager. But it does mean that he needs to understand what the situation is. If it's time for him to make plays, make some plays. If it's not, and he needs to just take what's there, make some easy, boring throws, then he needs to do that. He doesn't need to be spectacular throw guy. Because spectacular throw guy, that guy barely wins championships because he throws interceptions and his luck runs out in the playoffs. If he makes a bunch of throws that you find unspectacular when you watch him on a highlight reel, then he's probably playing quarterback right. The easier it looks, the more you can denigrate it on social media because the highlights don't look great, probably the better indication of what he's doing at the quarterback position. Because great quarterback play usually looks unspectacular because it's making good decisions. And when you got to fit a window that has 4 linebacker arms and a helmet in there, that's not a great decision. That's just a great feat of physical prowess. Deshaun needs to make more of a boring highlight reel than he's ever had in his career. The highlights need to be there, sure, for sure. Like, he don't need to be Case Keenum. Case Keenum don't ever throw that ball downfield. Throw the ball downfield if you see a play. But understand when you need to take your shots and when you don't. Hey, getting 15 yards right there, pushing it through a window and trying to take a risk might make sense, but you can get 15 yards from 2 Nick Chubb runs. You can get 15 yards by just dumping it off to David Njoku in the right time. You ain't got to work that hard to get 15 yards. And that's the thing with Deshaun. I guess that's the best way to put it. I worked myself through it during this segment. Deshaun Watson needs to figure out how to not work as hard for every yard that he has as a quarterback at the Cleveland Browns. Because he doesn't, right? He doesn't have to get the push foul. He has a nice wine deer that drives itself. That's all he needs to do. He needs to manage that software. He needs to manage that whole thing. That's what Deshaun needs to do. And he needs to not care about how that looks on social media. He needs to not care about what ESPN is going to say about it. He needs to not care if he's going to be in some random guy's top 5 quarterback ranking. He needs to not care about that. None of that matters. You don't make the playoffs because you got ranked top 5 in ESPN's power ranking. This ain't college football. You get to the playoffs by winning football games. And if you're asking me, what do the Browns need from the quarterback position, let alone Deshaun Watson, to win football games? They need a quarterback who's going to be okay playing chess, okay playing the long game, because that's what it's about for the Cleveland Browns, for each individual game and for the whole season entirely. It's about the long game. It's about getting to September. It's about getting to February. What the Browns need from Deshaun Watson is good quarterback play. And good quarterback play looks very different than how people assume that good quarterback play looks. That's why I wanted to get out here. That's my 2 cents that I wanted to get off here. If you want to see the full 1-hour clip of that video, or if you want to make sure you don't miss and interact with me live on Mondays at 7 p.m. when I am live on the OBR's channels, YouTube and Twitch, make sure you're subscribed to them. Make sure you're subscribed here too. Keep it locked. Peace.